Amnesty has departed. Behold, Trumpnesty is here to stay. How many times, asks Caleb Howe, the current editor-in-chief of RedState.com, have you heard the immigration hawks refer to Barack Obama's executive amnesty, or as I refer to it, the immigration proclamation, with every ounce of derision that can possibly be mustered? Well, that derision is going to have to find a new home because President Donald Trump is not only backed off taking early action on DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and DAPA, Deferred Action for Parents of Americans, to address those individuals who are already here and protected under the Obama administration policy. He, Trump, is allowing new issuances to continue. Yes, that's right, folks. Donald Trump's immigration hardline applies to all the most difficult and least likely to ever be realized steps, but a step, something that he could have done the very afternoon he was inaugurated, signing an executive order reversing DACA and DAPA, rescinding the immigration proclamation, he hasn't done. Now, what does that tell you about Donald Trump's genuineness and credibility when it comes to being an immigration hawk? Not a whole lot, does it? With no new Trump executive order on the program, on the immigration proclamation, the immigration-focused base of voters who put him in office may feel as if they were betrayed by this shift. They ought to feel that way. But then, of course, you have to remember that most Trumplicans will just sign off on everything that Donald Trump does, regardless of whether it's betraying everything that he ever promised them, the very things that attracted their support to him in the first place. Cult of personality. Although they should have seen it coming, as Trump has been signaling this for months. Remember, all the way back to last August, 6 months ago, when he, in essence, embraced amnesty. Remember, we are all cucks now? Remember that video? Yes, indeed. It's on the channel here. Just scroll back in the queue. So what exactly happened? Well, aside from not issuing an immediate executive order halting the amnesty per his many times repeated campaign promise to do just that, Press Secretary Sean Spicer, a.k.a. the witless crap weasel, made a statement at the first real daily White House press briefing. Quote, "First and foremost, the president's been very, very clear that we need to direct agencies to focus on those who are in this country illegally and have a record, a criminal record, or pose a threat to the American people. That's where the priorities are going to be, and then we're going to continue to work through the entire number of folks that are here illegally. But right now, the clear focus is on that." In other words, the low-hanging fruit is being left unpicked. And the high-hanging fruit, that is the more difficult things to achieve, that's their focus. But they're not going to do something as simple as just, let's cut off the influx. Let's cut off the amnesty. Could have done that with a stroke of a pen. Didn't do it. Hasn't done it still. Shouldn't that matter? Isn't that symptomatic? It's true, Trump has made that the focus of his immigration bluster recently, but his voters know what he promised, and the intellectually honest ones are not happy. Witness Ann Coulter Twitter bestie, not Ann Coulter herself, she's as silent as a tomb, which has been pretty much the case ever since he threw Amnesty overboard as a campaign and governing priority, or ending Amnesty. Witness Ann Coulter Twitter bestie, Amnesty opponent, and immigration hawk Mickey Koss. Here's something he tweeted. So Obama created facts on ground regarding DACA decree. Trump scared to pull trigger to reverse. Weak negotiating position. And here's something else Mickey Koss tweeted. Right, it's not as if Trump's just reluctant to take away work permits from DACA illegals who have them. He's still issuing new work permits. He could stop that with the swipe, with one signature on an executive order. Because, of course, the Immigration Proclamation, DACA and DAPA, were Obama executive orders that were unconstitutional usurpations of Congress's Article 1, Section 1 legislating power. And so it's a very simple matter to rescind an illegal executive order, and yet he's not doing that. Why, do you think, Trumplicans? Here's a pretty good summary of how Trump is allowing more amnesty to continue each day from Politico. Quote, applications from so-called dreamers seeking to renew their immigration status and work permits are being processed normally despite Donald Trump's repeated claims that the program set up by Barack Obama is illegal, a government spokesman said on Monday. This would have been last Monday of last week. A spokesman for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services told Politico that there was no immediate change to how the agency handles applications and renewals under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, illegally, unconstitutionally, and unlawfully set up by Obama in 2012. We are still accepting and processing DACA requests under existing policy, USCIS spokesman Steve Blando said. This would have been a week ago, Monday, so 9 days ago. And you know what? The reaction I gotten from Trumplicans is, oh, give him a chance, give him time, he'll get to it eventually. The easiest thing to do on the immigration front. Sign an executive order rescinding the Immigration Proclamation. Could be done like that. Now, immediately. Doesn't need Congress. Well, he won't do it. A conservative review, Daniel Horowitz, makes things very plain, calling it a colossal betrayal. We'll get to that in the next segment. At Hot Air, Jazz Shaw notes that Reince Priebus was asked about this on Fox News Sunday. Chris Wallace, what? Do you know what executive actions he's going to sign tomorrow and this week, referring to Trump? And specifically, is he going to undo DACA, the Obama executive action to defer deportation for the 700,000 so-called dreamers who were brought into this country illegally as children? Reince Priebus. Well, on the last one, I think we're going to work with House and Senate leadership as well to get a long-term solution on that issue. Uh-oh! Comprehensive immigration reform! So Chris Wallace is incredulous at this. So you won't undo DACA until, and Priebus butted in, I'm not going to make any commitments to you, but I've obviously foreshadowed there a little bit. But I think this week we're going to talk about trade. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. I think we're going to talk about immigration this week, and we're going to have a time of national security, a conversation about that, obviously, with General Mattis, close quote. Again, DACA and DAPA can be undone with executive orders, with the stroke of a pen. Could have been done the afternoon that Trump was inaugurated. Should have been the first thing he did. What was the first thing? What was the big splash that Donald Trump made when he jumped into the 2016 presidential race, for the Republican nomination? What was the first thing with which he led? Illegal immigration. Mexico sending their rapists and murderers and blah, 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 blah. That was that with which he led. So should not the first thing he did once he was sworn in as President of the United States, the 45th President of the United States, what was the first thing that he should have done when he walked into the Oval Office for the first time as President? Sign an executive order rescinding DAPA and DACA immediately. Simplest thing, easiest thing to do. Check it off the list. Get it done. He didn't do it. Still hasn't done it. Doesn't that tell you something, Trumplicans, about what Donald Trump really thinks about immigration? It should. Both Horowitz and Shaw, to varying degrees, mention adopting a wait-and-see position overall on Trump and immigration. But what else can one do? Of course you have to wait and see. This is not something that needed waiting. Trump does not need Congress to rescind the immigration proclamation. DAPA and DACA. He does not need Congress to do that. And now they're talking about comprehensive immigration reform. But the truth is that this is already a betrayal of what a large chunk of Trump voters sent him there to do. And it's a betrayal that some of us warned over and over and over was going to happen. It's another classic "see, I told you so." Never Trump was right again. So sure, wait and see. And Spicer says it's not a priority. Rescinding executive amnesty. Things can change in the future. There are lots of immigration problems to be addressed, and the administration may address them at some point. And they're continuing to screw them up. But in the meantime, Obama's executive amnesty continues, uninterrupted, contrary to Trump's campaign vows, with new applications processed daily. I believe in Washington, D.C., they call that business as usual. By the way, here are a few more Twitter reactions so you can get a feel for how this is being received by immigration hawks who still have their intellectual integrity. Mark Krikorian. Wait, who won the election? Rounding them all up would be idiotic, but halting DACA and letting existing grants continue till they expire is the obvious course. He could void DACA and say they'll start expiring in 3 months. Keep the heat on. He's taken it off with it seems no way to get a deal. Part of the deal, huh? Depends on what the objective actually is. Richard Reese tweeted, "So far, huh? You mean after 3 days?" Krikorian. DACA should have been halted Friday afternoon, giving them any time and beyond that is already a concession. Daniel Horowitz tweeted, "We can talk about crowd size or we can raise hell about Trump administration issuing Social Security cards to illegals and echoing Obama." Irrespective of one's policy views on immigration, maintaining... I'll get to that in the next segment here. Even if you are a liberal on immigration, keeping executive amnesty sets bad precedent. The Last Shoe 14 tweeted, "Trump's amnesty is going to be the best amnesty. Believe me, big league." Bill Kristol tweeted, "Trump will be to DACA what Ike was to much of the New Deal. The Republican president who doesn't repeal it, thereby ensuring it stays. There's a little historical perspective for you. And my personal favorite, closing the circle back with Mickey Koss, Reagan to air traffic controllers. I can take the heat. I mean business. Trump on DACA and DAPA. Reince and Paul tell me this is no time for bad press. And he doesn't really listen to that advice, does he? I would have mentioned something in here from Ann Coulter, but she hasn't tweeted about it, oddly enough. The aforementioned Daniel Horowitz, not David Horowitz, Daniel Horowitz, a conservative review, doesn't mince words. Trump leaving Obama's executive amnesty in place is a colossal betrayal. Indeed it is. On August 31st of last year, Trump said the following in a campaign stump speech. Quote, "Our message to the world will be this. You cannot obtain legal status or become a citizen of the United States by illegally entering our country. The truth is, the central issue is not the needs of the 11 million illegal aliens. Anyone who tells you that the core issue is the needs of those living here illegally has simply spent too much time in Washington. There is only one core issue in the immigration debate, and that issue is the well-being of the American people." Close quote. Two biggest rallying cries against Obama's imperial presidency in recent years have been repeal Obamacare and repeal Obama's illegal executive amnesty. Conservatives swore to themselves that if we ever got back into the White House, those two odious policies would be as good as dead. As we've chronicled, on this channel, repeal of Obamacare is already on the ropes. If Obama's amnesty is not repealed administratively in short order, it will represent a colossal betrayal of Trump's basic campaign promise and set a terrible precedent for an imperial presidency, something to which Donald Trump is not averse in the slightest. During the incipient days of this administration, Trump's chief of staff, Reince Priebus, has indicated that he does not want to repeal Obama's DACA amnesty. Quote, "President Trump has no immediate plans to use his executive powers to undo the Obama administration's order that protects some young illegal aliens known as Dreamers," White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus made clear Sunday in previewing the new administration's first full week. "I think we're going to work with the White House and Senate leadership as well as to get a long-term solution on that issue. Comprehensive immigration reform. Uh-oh." Priebus told Fox News Sunday, "I'm not going to make any commitments to you, but I have obviously foreshadowed there a little bit." Close quote. Furthermore, Trump spokesman Sean Spicer indicated that this won't be a priority. Catherine Thompson tweeted out thusly, regarding DACA, Spicer says Trump's been clear that we need to direct agencies to focus on those in this country illegally with a criminal record, close quote. Or close tweet, if you will. This position is very problematic for several reasons. Number one, welfare for illegals. Trump officials, and perhaps Trump himself, don't seem to understand what DACA is, much like some don't understand what Obamacare actually is, which is why they are confused about repealing it. Obama's executive amnesty was not merely the suspension of deportations of certain classes of illegal aliens. It offered them benefits and affirmative legal status, complete with Social Security cards, work permits, and thousands of dollars in refundable tax credit welfare payments. In fact, well over 500,000 illegals had received Social Security cards by 2014. According to a Congressional Research Service memo, illegal families could receive as much as $35,000 per family in retroactive earned income tax credit benefits the first year after being approved for Obama's executive amnesty. So it wasn't just going forward, it was retroactive as well. This was all done without an act of Congress, which is what made it illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional. Article 1, Section 1. See? Article 1, Section 1. United States Constitution. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, not the President, not in executive orders. Thus, to say we are not going to focus on deporting DACA recipients is a non sequitur to the main problem of granting them affirmative benefits. Even if we don't deport large numbers of them, we should certainly not give them American benefits. Number 2, discretion versus amnesty. There is one thing to use discretion to prioritize some enforcement actions over others. That is what every federal and state law enforcement agency does on a daily basis. It is quite another dynamic to actually publicly make a policy of de facto amnesty and legitimize and codify the supposed right of illegal aliens to remain in the country contrary to our sovereignty laws. Saying we are only focusing on criminal aliens is essentially Obama's stated and false messaging. From one tyrant to another. Number 3, dream amnesty serves as a magnet, an incentive for illegals to come here illegally, rewarding bad behavior. Agreeing to the false notion that children of illegal aliens have a right to demand legal status and that poor decisions of their parents in host countries are the fault of American taxpayers and workers runs contrary to everything Trump said during the campaign. Furthermore, it encourages future waves of immigration at a time when Central Americans understand that once they come here with children, they are essentially here to stay. Trump promised to get rid of unqualified birthright citizenship for those born here to illegal alien parents. How could he then grant amnesty to those born in foreign countries? Number 4. Do we want a king or do we want a president? Irrespective of one's policy views on immigration, maintaining Obama's illegal amnesty shreds our sovereignty, shreds the Constitution, and sets a terrible precedent. Executive amnesty was perhaps Obama's most egregious act of imperialism because it undermined the very foundation of our sovereignty. In fact, giving rights to aliens is the quintessential example Hamilton used to contrast a president from a king. A president can confer no privileges whatsoever. The other, a king, can make denizens of aliens, noblemen of commoners, can erect corporations with all the rights incident to corporate bodies, wrote Hamilton in Federalist 69. There is no greater act of imperialism than for a president to unilaterally nullify our sovereignty and violate immigration statutes. Conservatives in Congress should not wait for Trump to act. They should immediately demand a vote on legislation cutting off refundable tax credits to illegal aliens. They should also pass the New IDEA Act, sponsored by Representative Stephen King of Iowa, which would eliminate, I think it's Iowa's 5th congressional district, which would eliminate the employer tax deduction for any employee who is working here illegally. They need to get Trump back on message and refocus the debate away from the false dichotomy of immediate and mass deportations toward putting American taxpayers and workers first. Every president over-promises and under-delivers. Has to be expected. Time will tell what happens with the proactive conservative immigration reforms Trump promised. And to his credit, Trump has already made good on some promises, such as a freeze on federal hiring and reinstatement of the Mexico City abortion funding policy. But there is no excuse for maintaining any shred of Obama's amnesty. That is a red line, or ought to be. Make no mistake about it. If Republicans keep Obama's amnesty, they will own it. Much like they will own Obamacare if they maintain the insurance regulations. There is never more political capital to rescind it than during the first 100 days. Conservatives would be wise to make sure the cooler heads in Trump's administration prevail over reince priebus. But then, ultimately, it's on Trump, and Trump will never be mistaken for a cool head.